I've been there. I've walked up to a mess of electrical wires and panicked. But today I'm going to show you there is no need to panic. Figuring out the wires is a simple process and can often be done without a multimeter. But a multimeter will make things infinitely easier and definitely safer. Before we get into this, remember, electricity can hurt or even kill you. So any electrical work you attempt, you do so at your own risk. Please don't work on live circuits and always test to make sure the power is off. If you don't have a way to test if wires are electrified, you shouldn't be working on them. If you haven't seen one of these, this is a non-contact voltage tester. It's used to sense power without actually making contact with the wires. Some people call these death sticks because they're not foolproof. And depending on the model, some have a wider voltage range than others. The minimum voltage this one senses is 50 volts. Fun fact, 50 volts can still kill you. I use this for a before and after sweep when turning circuits off, and to look for obvious power when testing. Let's get started. You walk into a room and you're faced with this. A bunch of switch boxes and light boxes with wires sticking out and no idea what anything goes to or what it's used for. Relax, breathe, and know that with a few simple steps, we'll make sense of all this. Before we get too far into this video assumes that you know some electrical basics and how switches are wired. If you don't know how switches are wired, please go watch this video first. The first thing we want to do is to make sure none of the wires are electrified or hot. So I'm going to turn on my non-contact voltage tester and very carefully, without actually touching wires with my fingers, I'm going to go around here and look for power. Oh, got some power here. So let's go find the circuit and turn it off. All right, I believe I've turned it off. This is where we were getting power, somewhere around here, and I'm not sensing power anymore. Now to be extra safe, we can take our multimeter, turn it to voltage, and test. Let's see, which cable was this coming in? It was coming in on that one. Test these wires to make sure there is 0 voltage on here. And there is. So I'm looking at what wires are coming in on what cables, and I'm touching the black and the white. To be extra safe, you probably want to go around and do all of these. Be careful not to touch them with your skin. Okay, after we know the power is off, we want to make sure we separate all of our wires so that none of the copper is touching, unless some of the grounds are touching each other. That's not as important, but you don't want any copper to be touching any of the electrical conductors. If possible, we want to not only separate the wires themselves, but we want to separate the cables that they come in on. So you can see this one here has 3 cables. So I'm going to make this obvious. This blue cable, we're going to separate all those. This white cable here, we're going to separate those. And this white cable here, we're going to separate those. And just go around and do that with all of them. These down, those up. The reason we want to separate all the wires from each other is because we're about to turn the power on temporarily, and we don't want there to be any arcing between wires. Okay, everything is separate. No conductors are touching. Now before I turn the power on, I want to make sure there are no kids in the house and there's no chance of anyone else touching any of these wires. To be extra safe, at this point you could go around and put wire nuts on the ends of each and every wire just to make sure they don't get touched. But I know I'm alone and I'm willing to take the risk, so I'm going to go ahead and turn the power back on temporarily. The power is back on. Now we're going to carefully scan for electricity again. I remember it was in this box, but definitely scan all the wires. There could be some switch loops in the light boxes, but I think everything is right here. So looks like this black wire right here is hot. So here we have power, and this appears to be the only power source. Let's test how many volts this has really quickly. Get out my multimeter, turn it to voltage. Put the red on the black, not on the white. We have 120 plus volts. So we know this is a good circuit, and that is our incoming power. I'm going to go ahead and very carefully cap that wire off. Go ahead and cap the neutral off as well. And I like to wrap them in black electrical tape just to remind me this is the incoming power. So now I'm going to go back and turn the power off again. I believe the power is off. Let's test. I'm going to test to make sure the power is off. This is the only power I'm really concerned about. We can double check with the multimeter. I'm going to separate the ends of this just in case. Don't want them to touch. And we have 0 volts. All right, we'll go ahead and keep these capped just so we don't forget if we happen to turn the power back on. Okay, so knowing where the power source is tells us that this box is probably where any switching starts. So I'm going to take a piece of masking tape and we're going to call this box 1. Now let's figure out where the other wires in this box are going to. We're going to turn our multimeter on continuity. Continuity is the ability for electricity on a wire to continue. We can touch one end of this wire with this lead and the other end of this wire with this lead and know that it's one wire because we have continuity. We know that this end is connected to this end. But what if the wire is really long and our leads won't reach the ends of the same wire? If we want to see where this cable goes, but we can only reach one end of this cable at a time, how do we do it? If we connect these two wires together, which you could do with a simple wire nut, or I like to use these Wago connectors when doing this temporarily because they don't damage the wires. We'll connect the black and the white over here, lock them together. Now what we've essentially done is made this black and white wire the same wire that forms a loop inside the cable. So we can go over to this end and we can test for continuity. And we can see that these wires over here are the same as these wires over here, and they run in the same cable. And that right there is the trick to tracing all of these wires. Let's start with the cable that has the most wires. So that'll be this blue one here. This is 14 3-wire right here, so it has 3 conductors and 1 ground. What we're going to do here is we're going to hook the red and the black together. So now we know the red and the black wires are now one continuous wire going through this blue cable right here. So now, to find where these wires go, we need to check some of these other boxes and test for continuity between a red and a black wire. We'll start over here. Let's see. This is one cable over here, right? So is this the blue cable we're looking for? Test the red and the black. No continuity. That's not it. What about this one? Red and black. No continuity. That's not it. Let's go over here. Red and black. That's not it. Red and black. That's it right there. So we know that this blue cable right here goes into this box and comes out right here. So that's the incoming power. And we'll call this box 2. Since it starts at this box and that's box 1, the second box it hits is this one. Put a little piece of tape, call that box 2. Now let's figure out where it's going from here. So we know those are the incoming. These must be the outgoing. Now if you're really new at this or you're forgetful, you could take a piece of tape and put it on these wires and say incoming from box 1 or something like that, just so you know where it's coming from. If we had big 2 or 3 or 4 gang wire boxes with lots of wires coming in, we would definitely want to separate and label the wires so we didn't forget what went where. But you'll see that's not that important in this situation. So we're going to take our connector off these wires and we're going to put them on the black and the red over here. Now we're going to look for a black and a red in one of these other boxes that has continuity. Black and red over here. We got nothing. Black and red right here. Oh, there it is. So we know this is the incoming power from switch 2. So we've gone from switch 1 to switch 2, so we will call this switch 3. And I could put a label right here if I want, saying incoming. Come over here and say out, in. And without even testing these, we know these are going to be out. And we're going to assume they're going over here, since it's our last electrical switch box, but we're going to test to verify. Red and black, connect them together. I'm going to look for continuity over here. And we have it. This is box 4. And this is the in. All right. If you watch the switch video, you'll have a pretty good idea of what's going on here already. These are obviously going to be some 3- and 4-way switches. Since we've got all these boxes completely done, let's see what these wires are over here. I'm assuming that these are going to go to the light fixture. Connector off here, we'll connect the white and the black. And we'll go up to our light fixture and see if this is our light fixture. It is. So what does that tell us? That tells us that there will be a switch in each one of these boxes that all switch this same light. Now let's go back to this box and figure out what the remaining wires are. Take our connector from over here. We know this is the incoming power. We don't need to worry about that. We know this goes out to our 3- and 4-way switch circuit that feeds this light. So this is the last thing we need to figure out. Connect the black and the white together. And we will assume that these go up to this light. And they do. And since this is the only set of wires left, it appears that there will only be one single pole switch that switches this light right here. All right, let's throw some switches and lights in these boxes and see if this works. So we know we've got only one source of power that's going to power all these switches and thus the light fixtures. So we know we're going to have a 3-way switch here and a single pole switch here. And since this one set of wires is going to supply power to it, we're going to have to make a pigtail. So let's go ahead and make a pigtail out of this black right here. So here are our hot pigtails. These are what are going to go to the switches. And we know the neutrals, so this is the neutral coming in from the power. We know they need to go directly to the light fixtures themselves. So go ahead and connect the neutrals together. So this neutral, we know feeds directly to this light switch. I don't like how that's curved there. That needs to be a nice straight piece of wire for these lever connectors to make good contact. Right, so now we have neutral from the power going to this light fixture directly, and this neutral will go ahead and hook to the neutral power coming in. And this neutral technically will go straight to this light fixture, but it does have to pass through all the other boxes first. Tuck this in. Go ahead and hook our grounds together. And then we'll make some ground pigtails to go to our switches. Here's a ground pigtail. Here's a ground pigtail. Here is our single pole switch. It only has 2 ways the power comes in and out. Go ahead and hook our ground up. Now we're going to take one of our hots from our pigtail, bring it in one side of this switch, and then we'll take this black conductor, which goes to this light box, and hook it to the other leg of the switch. So this switch now has power coming from the power source on this pigtail and going out to the light fixture on this black conductor. And the neutral is connected directly to the power source and to the light fixture. Now, if I were actually going to install this permanently in an old work fixture like this, these have a little indentation here so that if you break off these plaster tabs, this part of the frame of the light switch fits perfectly in there and is flush with the face of the electrical box, which makes it easier to get the wall plate flush to the wall. If you leave these sticking up here, like we will in this case, it will sit kind of on top of the box and not make for as neat of a job. Tuck those grounds back in there. Okay, so since we know this is the first switch in several that go to this light fixture, we know the first switch needs to be a three-way switch. And the three-way switch has a common and then two travelers. The common is for where the power comes in. So this is our hot pigtail coming from the power source. So we're going to go straight to our black. But first, let's go ahead and connect our ground wire. Power source goes to the black common. And these are our travelers. Doesn't matter which one goes where. Okay, so the power comes into the switch here from the power source and travels to the next switch through these two traveler terminals, the red and the black wire. Tuck that in. All right, let's go to switch number 2. So we know if we have a light fixture that uses more than one switch, the first switch from the power is going to be a three-way switch, and the last switch before the light fixture is going to be a three-way switch. If we have more than two switches, all the switches in between the first and the last switch are going to be four-way switches. That's all in the switch video if you missed that. We've got switch number 1 done. Let's move on to switch number 2, which will be a four-way switch. Now for this mock-up, I'm not going to connect all the grounds together like they're supposed to be connected. Just know that all of your grounds are going to be connected together to any metal boxes and to any fixtures with a grounding screw. But for the example, we're just going to ignore those. So the first thing we want to do is make our neutral. As we said, our neutral will just pass on through these boxes and go on up to the light fixture. We're just going to use this. I usually only use these to extend wires in hard to reach places, but this kind of gives you a better visual on the neutral just passing through each box. We'll go ahead and tuck that neutral away. We're going to bring the input in here to these black screws. A lot of these four-way switches are made different. Some of them don't have black screws. Some of them don't say input and output. Just know they have 4 screws or 4 terminals, and you connect your travelers to them in and out. Now I would go and retorque these with my screwdriver, but for the demonstration, we're just going to put them in like this. So now we move from switch number 2 to switch number 3, which is another 4-way switch since we have 4 switches. So here is another 4-way switch. Remember, our grounds will be connected together to any metal boxes and to the device itself. If this were not just a mock-up illustration, of course that would make this mock-up a little safer, but our neutral will just pass through this box in its route on up to the light fixture. Have our power coming in, power going out, and switch number 3 is done. Now we're at switch number 4. And since it's the last switch before the light fixture, we know it's going to be a 3-way switch because the power will come out through the common straight up to our light fixture. First, we're going to go ahead and pass our neutrals through just like in the other ones. The neutral just goes from the power source all the way through all the boxes and up to the light fixture. It does not pass through any switches. Again, our grounds get connected together. So let's start with our travelers coming in. One goes to each of these gold screws. And the black going up to the light fixture goes to the common. Okay, let's go ahead and install our light fixtures. There's our neutral, which goes to the screw shell. Again, the grounds would be connected together, and the hots will be together. The safest way to put these things together is grounds first, then neutrals, then hots. And here's our other light fixture. Neutral and hot. All right, let's turn on the power and see if this works. The power is now on. Let's try our single switch. Yes. Now let's try our multiple switches. That one works. That one works. That one works. That one works. On, off. On, off, on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off. That's it. I hope this video has calmed some fears and that some people have learned something. If so, please consider hitting the like button. And as always, thank you for watching. Please comment below, and I hope to see y'all in the next one.